So just remember, first thing that happens in any type of transition is you're going to change. Now remember, down here, we've got productivity and energy. So the higher you are, the more productive and the more energetic, the more motivation, the more energy you've got, and the lower down opposite, and of course along here we've got time. So the first thing that happens is that you go into change. The change comes along and then our productivity drops. And the reason our productivity drops is because we go into shock at that point, okay? And when we go into shock, our productivity drops because we're not as productive as we used to be. It depends on the level of the change of how big the shock is, okay? We all know shock at the high end can be debilitating for people, but it can be debilitating even if it's short term. Well, I can't, just what's happened kind of thing, yeah? So with lockdown, we saw a lot of people going into shock, but remember, this is going to apply to any change that's going on within Centrica at the moment. People will be going through this transition. After shock, we do something quite human, and our productivity goes back up, and that's because we go into denial. Oh, didn't hit that, did I? We go into denial, and in denial, we make up stuff in our heads. Okay, so we make the change not as bad as we think it's going to be. We even deny the fact that it's probably going to happen. At this point, you know, I've used examples of this. You know, when lockdown was mentioned, I was like, well, that's ridiculous. They can't lock down the schools because how will people work? They can't close businesses because the economy won't run. All of this type of stuff. And I've been through lots of organisational changes as well, where I've gone, well, they won't do this, they can't do that, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, the change has taken place. And when the change takes place, we start coming down this curve of realisation. Okay? We start dropping down this curve of realisation. And as we drop down the curve, remember there's a set of emotions that we might feel. You might feel like you've been bumped over the head, had the wind taken out of you. Sorry about that. Had the wind taken out of you. You might feel that you are frustrated or angry or annoyed, fed up. Or you might feel like you are upset, sad, even depressed, if it goes that far, okay? So on this journey, all the way down transition, it's quite a painful journey, as we know. And at some point, we get to the bottom of it, okay? Well, most people do. You know my standing joke around this by now. If you've got somebody in your business that's still moaning about something that happened 10 years ago, that person is stuck in transition. So what that means is something happened, probably an organisational change, 10 years ago, and that person didn't particularly like it, and they went through transition, got to this bottom point, and decided to stay there and get stuck in transition. And you can tell it, you can see it a mile off, because they are obviously still moaning and whinging without any solution, so very problem focused from something that happened a long time ago. Okay, so you can kind of see that, no names, but you know, you can see it in people. You know, I run some sessions last year for a large white goods manufacturer and engineers, and I run a roadshow for about 1,000 engineers, and there was a handful of people over those 1,000 engineers that were stuck here. One of them in particular was very upset about a particular contract change that happened 8 years ago, and it was very much stuck in transition and not got through it. So we need to, once we're here, it's great but dangerous. The reason it's dangerous is because we can start to sabotage or self-sabotage. Okay, so we can start to beat ourselves up and make sure that we never get out of this transition, or we start to sabotage other people, okay? So you know the phrase, we start to walk through other people's minds with our dirty feet, okay, on the back of it. So it is good that we get here because it's the recognition point, or should I say the realization point. Oh, not that one. It's the realization point here. So it is the point where we can make a choice. However, if we don't make a choice, it's the point that we lull about in. Sometimes some of my ex-colleagues that I used to work with would call this a fur-lined rut, okay? Because it's quite comfortable. It's quite nice to be in. You can have a whinge, and if your mates are with you, they'll whinge back as well. Now, you know my stance on moaning. Having a 5-minute moan, quite useful actually, in the right place at the right time with the right person, because it releases chemical, and then you can take some action on the back of it. The only issue with moaning is if you moan about something and then do nothing with it. Otherwise, you're probably going to be back in the same room moaning about the same thing the week after. Remember, there's 3 choices that we have when we're not happy about something. You know, I've done Mr. and Mrs. Unhappy Face a number of times before, but we have 3 choices. When we find ourselves here, 3 choices. Choice number 1, can we change it? That's fight. Choice number 2, can we exit from it? That's flight. And if you can't do either of them, choice number 3 is, can we change ourselves? And by now, you guys should know changing ourselves means changing our self-talk. Okay, changing the input to change the behavioural output from that. So once we get here, if we can make that choice, of course the other choice is to just keep moaning, which is not very productive.